On behalf of the Toronto Police Services Board, I'm pleased to be part of this important video today as we celebrate this year's National Indigenous Peoples Day event. This year, while we celebrate in a very different format necessitated by the pandemic, this in no way diminishes the necessity of honoring the beauty, vitality, and spirit of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities in Toronto and in Canada. In our celebrations, however, it's also imperative that we discuss the greater context of examining our treatment of Indigenous people in our country, both historically and in current times. This is especially important given the recent devastating discovery of the mass grave of 215 Indigenous children who were students at the residential school in Kamloops. Our hearts are with the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities, with the survivors of the residential school system, and with the children who are still missing, along with those we have lost, and with their families and communities. In acknowledging this painful past, we must recognize too that true reconciliation requires us to acknowledge that the trauma is ongoing, that this was a reality for far too many, and that discrimination persists even today with an impact that is significant. We can and must do more, and it's critical that we have to commit ourselves wholly, sincerely, and humbly to this work. Closer to home, we are examining what our own police service is doing to improve positive, trusting relationships with our First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities in the City of Toronto. We are reminded of the great importance of the relationships between the police service and the public, a crucial partnership that must be fostered and celebrated. Through today's celebration, let us honor that relationship and rededicate ourselves to making it even stronger for the future. We are heartened by what the police and First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities truly working together with the objective of sincere and sustained reconciliation can achieve, and we are optimistic about our future. Thank you.
This month we celebrate the heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding achievements and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. On behalf of the Toronto Police Service, I want to extend best wishes to our communities in Toronto and across Canada celebrating National Indigenous History Month. Sadly, this year we also mourn with the Indigenous community and honor the memory of the 215 children whose bodies were found at a residential school site in Kamloops. Our thoughts are with their families, communities, and all Indigenous Canadians. We know that policing has and continues to have a role in the systemic racism that negatively impacts the Indigenous community. Over the past year, alongside the Police Services Board, we have taken the time to reflect on where we've been and where we need to be by working to implement the 81 recommendations for police reform. As a police service, we're doing everything we can to root out inequalities, implement reforms, and build an inclusive culture at TPS. Most importantly, we are going to continue to build strong relationships with our Indigenous communities through our Aboriginal Community Consultative Committee, our Indigenous Liaison Officer, and our Aboriginal Peacekeeping Unit. We know how much work has to be done, and we are committed to listening, learning, and taking action. June 21, 2021 also marks the 25th anniversary of National Indigenous Peoples Day. Since celebrations cannot happen in person this year, our Aboriginal Community Consultative Committee has put together a series of videos to share Indigenous cultural ceremonies and heritage with our community while demonstrating our commitment to work together as allies. Please visit our social media channels over the next 2 weeks to learn more. Thank you.
As we celebrate National Indigenous History Month throughout June, we are reminded of the important role community engagement plays in our police service. Our city is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and our service is committed to continually working to build meaningful relationships and foster trust with our Indigenous communities. Our Aboriginal Peacekeeping Unit has been in existence for almost 30 years and works proactively to improve access for community members to policing services. Through regular collaboration and exchange of information, our members become better informed on Indigenous customs, traditions, values, and history. The community learns more about policing in Toronto and has a voice in shaping our processes and procedures when it comes to serving Indigenous peoples. Our Aboriginal Community Consultative Committee and our Indigenous Liaison Officer work closely with community partners to discuss issues of mutual concern in an atmosphere of trust and understanding. Through our Neighborhood Officer Program, we see officers building relationships at the grassroots level by regularly engaging with the many Indigenous community members across our city to promote trust and break down barriers. Please do take some time to watch the videos over the next few weeks to learn about Indigenous culture and history and the ways in which the Toronto Police Service continues to work together in partnership with our Indigenous communities.